you hold up a mirror to a betta fish, it just pounces because it sees someone that is similar to it. But that's not all pre-meds. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be part 1 out of a hopefully 10-part series, So You Want to Go to Medical School. Each video will cover a few topics related to med school, the application process, or just being a pre-med. I will also be putting up the informational written guides that go along with these videos on my Instagram at emily.med. Without further ado, let's get to it. So you want to go to medical school.
Well then, you'll need excellent recommendations from your professors, and a heck of an admissions essay, and at least
a 528 on your MCAT.
When applying to medical school, it really doesn't matter what your undergraduate major was.
Your major is fashion merchandising.
Looking at those who are admitted into MD schools in the US, you can see that there is about 50-50 between natural sciences and humanities. So really you don't have to be a science major to go to medical school. All you have to do is make sure that you have the prerequisites, so bio, chem, physics, math, as well as keeping a high GPA and of course doing well on the MCAT. This brings me to the basics. So first I do talk about stats, and this may be controversial, but I pulled my numbers from the US MD matriculants as far as 2019-2020 cycle, and so they recommend that most matriculants do have an overall GPA of 3.72, a non-science GPA of at least a 3.8, a science GPA, which includes your natural sciences and sometimes math, it depends on how your school calculates it, of a 3.68. And then you want to shoot for an MCAT that is a 510. As you know, the MCAT is graded on a scale from 472 to 528. Your 50th percentile would be a 500. 510 is the goal, I say, because it's the 80th percentile. You're pretty safe with that as long as everything else is in place, but the opposite could be true. If you have a lower MCAT score and everything else going for you, it depends on exactly your score breakdown as well as those extracurriculars, your letters of recommendation, and your GPA. So don't fret if you don't check off all of those statistics. The MCAT is merely just one factor of your overall application and you as a future physician. I did not meet all of those above statistics.
Okay.
Because all you need is a good enough score to get a second glance on your application. Is this person dedicated enough to take the time to learn how to tackle the MCAT, learn how to read CARS passages and answer questions like, what color blue was the house painted? I'm just giving you the averages and what would be your safest bet. I also feel as though students who have done really well to prepare for their pre-med curriculum, they're really taken aback by how really hard it is. It is such a hard exam. I know it only gets harder from here, but I struggled with it, just finding the motivation. And so if you know that you're not putting your best foot forward with your MCAT and you can do a lot better, then take the gap year and just retake the test. It's not a big deal. So many medical students do this and they end up getting into really amazing schools. Don't let the fear of having to retake it a second or even third time deter you. However, I recommend that you don't take it more than 3 times maximum, just because as a physician and as a medical student, you're not going to be able to take, you don't want to have to take the boards, your USMLE step exams more than once. I think now would be a good practice to get used to only taking these big exams once or twice. But as long as you feel ready and you feel like you have the best shot, then go for it, even if you don't have a 510 and a 3.9 overall, whatever it is. Let's talk about the rest of your application. So besides grades and MCAT scores, there's a really big application that you're going to have to fill out. I say show interest, and by that I mean you don't have to do shadowing, volunteer work, research, and employment in your 4 years. I'm just saying this is a combination of things you might want to think about doing throughout your undergraduate experience. So number 1 is shadowing. It is a staple in the pre-med application. I think that you have to shadow. If nothing else, shadow a physician. Any way that you can find a connection, whether it be a family, friend, you volunteer at the hospital, that's a great way to try to introduce yourself, see if they would have time to let you shadow, but I think that shadowing is a really important part of your application. I say volunteer work because I think it's a great opportunity if it's in a hospital to get direct patient exposure, or it could be something that is consistent throughout your time in undergraduate. It could lead to leadership opportunities or a letter of recommendation. So volunteer work, besides being extremely fulfilling and rewarding, is something that I highly recommend. Third is research. Now, this is debated whether you need to have research, and the answer is no. You don't have to have research. I really joined research really late in the game, basically my senior year. Besides getting scientific research experience, you're also going to be working closely with a faculty mentor, because you likely will be doing that in med school, if not beyond. I feel like it really prepared me as a scientist. It made me a more interesting person and applicant.
Hi, quick story time. As some of you may know, my undergraduate research was tracking snakes in the woods, and one particular day I actually fell chest deep into some swamp bog water. But luckily my lab partner, who is usually a pain in the butt, was awake and confident enough to pull me out of the water just in time so I did not drown or get all the tracking equipment wet. The only thing that came out of it was,
Look away if you don't like feet.
I actually got a staph infection on my toe. It got better, don't worry, thanks for asking. So if you want to hear any of these weird, crazy stories from the woods, feel free to leave a comment below.
And I also really enjoyed that field of biology, and I gained a deeper understanding of ecology and conservation efforts. The last one is employment. You're probably thinking, wow, this is a lot to do besides getting perfect grades and a stellar MCAT score. These are just suggestions. I'm saying that if you can't spend tons of hours dedicating your time to not getting paid while doing service, if your employment can tie into the medical field, that would set you apart from other people. If you could find an on-campus job, something like a tutor or a TA, that also looks really good on your resume, and it keeps information from previous classes fresh in your mind. So if you're tutoring organic chemistry, you won't have to study as much for the MCAT. Freshman year, you're going to want to adjust to college life and take interesting classes. You can change your major, but if you change it too late, you'll just have to end up taking an extra semester or another year. Make sure you're doing everything you can to succeed and set yourself up for a great GPA, because as the time goes on, it's harder to boost your GPA. Definitely make friends with other pre-meds. My one friend says that pre-meds are like beta fish. If you hold up a mirror to a beta fish, it might start attacking itself because it sees someone that is similar to it, so it just pounces. But that's not all pre-meds. If you make the right pre-med friends, you'll have more help. You guys can work together instead of tearing each other down. I highly recommend making at least one pre-med friend. Utilize professor office hours. It might be weird to go and talk to your professor outside of class, but they're people too. You talk to them, ask questions, talk about their research, and this is how you get an in with shadowing. Join some organizations. Make sure you join organizations and clubs that interest you. I would just highly recommend joining at least one pre-health or science academic related organizations. If your school has a pre-med committee, you can check out their website for now as a freshman. And also you want to look into health services, mental health services, tutoring. That's also another leadership role that you could potentially have in the future. And then finally, for freshman year, you want to kind of line up your timeline. Just having a loose game plan really makes that much of a difference. Summers are really key in adding to your application, especially those extracurricular activities that I mentioned before. If you can't fit that in during the year, you're going to have to do it over winter and summer breaks. Now, sophomore year, we are going to conquer organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is not Gen Chem. You're good at Gen Chem, that's great. It requires a different part of your brain to think about these reactions, memorize reagents, and then use critical thinking skills to somehow pull out a product. I don't know, my yields were always horrible in lab. Orgo 1, you're thrown into this new world, you're learning about like chirality or something. My school made us buy this stupid. By the time that you figure out the pieces, put them together, stop dropping them all over the place, the exam's over and you already failed. You have to do the problems in the book, do your professor's old exams if they're available to you, and then ask upperclassmen how they passed the class, what they did, what resources they used. And no matter how hard or easy your orgo professor is, if you're stuck with a really hard professor that makes you memorize every detail, then hey, that's just less you have to study for the MCAT. And if you get stuck with a really easy orgo professor, take like a night class or something, it won't rip your GPA in half. But you also will definitely have to study a little bit extra for the MCAT orgo section. For those orgs that you joined your freshman year or that you attended, I would start getting more serious about those. See if you can line up a leadership position by the end of your sophomore year going into junior year. That will help you a lot when deciding what activities should I put on my application. If you haven't already picked out your major, you might want to do that by your sophomore year, or solidify a minor or minors that you want to pick up throughout your undergraduate experience. That could also help you stand out, even if your major isn't the most creative thing. Biology. Somewhere between sophomore and junior year, you should be looking into if your pre-med committee at your school offers committee letters. Ideally, you're going to want a committee letter, so definitely check to make sure that your school offers them and do whatever it takes in order to get that committee letter.
If the committee thinks that you're good enough and they're going to support you, then you most likely will get in.
You're going to want to think about when to take the MCAT. Your junior year, you have to take the prereqs to not only get into med school, but also
you want to take physics 1 and 2 for the MCAT, but how are you supposed to do that if you had 2 years of bio and chemistry with lab? And taking 3 sciences, at least in my school, was just not recommended.
For me, this summer was about taking physics 1 and 2. It really sucked. But it lightened up my junior year workload so that I could focus on the MCAT, as well as take upper level bios and biochemistry, which is really important for the MCAT. So junior year now rolls by. You did something productive over the summer, you started studying for the MCAT, you shadowed, volunteered, research program, whatever. It just gets crazier from here. Junior year is really the last year you have to stand out on your application, and as a student, you're going to want to take on that leadership role either in an organization, in employment, or your research in terms of going to a conference or publishing a paper. This is now the time to talk to your pre-med committee. They might not want to see you before you take the MCAT, but at least you'll be able to open up a case on file with them. This is the year to also ask for letters of recommendation. So you thought about it over the summer, and now you know who you want to ask. I say wait till junior year because you're closer to when you're actually going to apply, and so you're more sure that you're not going to have another great experience with this professor that he or she could potentially write about. Junior year is really tough. Not only are you
possibly finishing up courses before you take the MCAT, you also have to take the MCAT, think of letters of recommendation, talk to your school's pre-med committee, write your personal statement, and then make sure you have all these things together to send in close to or on June 1st of the end of your junior year.
So there's a lot to do. So studying abroad is really tough without a gap year.
If you do take a gap year, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to do the application process abroad, overseas.
This year, you're also going to want to think about your personal statement and what you would like to write about. The prompt will be something along the lines of, so why do you want to become a physician? It's a tough question, and you have to do it right because it is one of the more personal things that's on your application. So your personal statement is very important, if not equally as important as everything else. Finally, this year, you're going to want to take the MCAT no later than May at the very latest. I took it super late. Mine was May 18th. I barely got my score June 18th, and then I applied that day. It still worked out, but you want to be sure that you can hit submit June 1st, or as close to June 1st as you can. Let's fast forward to the end of your junior year, spring. You're going to be preparing to write these secondaries, and you may want to do something over the summer that might stand out on your application, whether it's medically related or not. It'll give you something to talk about in your interview coming the fall and winter. Finally, senior year. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congrats. You made it. And you've applied. All you're doing is waiting for those interview invites to roll in, hopefully. Sometimes schools do a roll-in admissions, so the earlier interview date that you pick, you might hear back earlier, and securing a seat at least one institution would be awesome going into senior year. This year, you can have a little bit more fun, focus on interviews, finishing up your classes, make sure you clean up your social media. It's so easy to look people up nowadays. Make sure that you don't post anything that could potentially get you in trouble in any way. Don't drive yourself crazy with Student Doctor Network or r/premed, because a lot of those people on their sites just lie anyway about their stats.
They're like, oh no, I got a 528 and I have a 5.0 GPA. What are my chances for getting into my state school?
So Don't pay attention to that. Just focus on yourself. Other than that, you're just chilling and enjoy those acceptances. Thanks for sticking around. I hope this video was useful and informative for people applying to med school, and I will be doing 9 more of these. But if you have any suggestions, please leave it in the comments below. And don't forget to follow my Instagram and Pinterest. Bye!